Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a crisp and cool morning here in South Africa. We're in the Sabi Sands Reserve on Djuma Private Game Reserve, and perfect timing. The sun has just risen up over our eastern horizon, and I'm happy to say that I'm teamed up with Brian this morning. And it's been a while since we've worked together, so looking forward to an adventure with him. VM and Brian have swapped, and VM is with Marc this morning, and Marc is already following up on tracks of the Nkahuma Pride of Lion, which we saw last night. They've headed south from their last position, and Brian and myself have decided to try our best to show you some impala, male impala rutting. That's that funny snorting noise you can hear in the background, and there's a few females in front of us that one male is protecting.
Morning, mobile station.
Excuse me. So they are all calm and very relaxed, but there's a male who is running around furiously, ensuring that no other males come in and chase these ladies away or try and steal these ladies from them. I'm just going to try and reposition the vehicle quickly. The male just returned after chasing another male away and is now in the process of chasing one of his ladies around. Where did he go? Hoping he headed up into the quarantine clearings. We're just on the fringe of a very big open area, and ideally... Oh, there he is. Let's see what happens here. Okay, I think I might just stop here. It looks like he may start some of his funny antics. Now, for those of you who are joining for the first time, welcome on board. And just to let you know, this is a live safari, so what you see is actually happening this very second. Here he goes. Sadly, a bush was right in the way of what we were trying to achieve there. But we're going to stay with him and see if we can't get you another view. Like I say, though, it's a live safari and it's also interactive. You have the opportunity to send questions through to us, and to do that you would hashtag Safari Live on Twitter or send an email through to questions@wildearth.tv. And Nikki and Tara, who are in the final control, will send those questions through to us. Now, I feel like we may get lucky here. He is in a bush at the moment, but I'm hoping he's going to come running out at some stage. It's interesting, there's one female that's been following him more closely than others, and here's the animal that's making that funny snorting sound. It develops into a growling roar almost when they start running, and it's a very intensive rutting period over basically a month. Here we go. Ooh, are we going to see their mate? This is looking promising. She certainly did present. Look at this. Apologies for the fence in the background. That's the owner of Djuma's house. Now, if they do mate, it's a very, very quick process. It'll take a split second. He'll basically just jump on her back and fall off. And this explains why she has separated herself from the rest of the herd. She's obviously very receptive, and all of the females will become receptive within this 1 month period. Maybe she would like some privacy behind this bush. I'm not too sure, but I'm guessing they will just pop out on the other side. I don't want to interfere, but then again, I do want to share with you whatever's going on behind that bush, so we are going to move. Well, who knows what we missed in these last few seconds. This is going to be absolutely beautiful with the morning sunlight in the background. Well, he lost focus and there's a lot running through these male impalas' heads at the moment, and their behavior sometimes is hard to explain, but they are charged with testosterone. And I'm gonna, ooh, okay, here's another male on our right. He's just come in and trying his luck here, so I'm fairly certain that we are going to see the initial male that we've been watching come and chase this individual. Now I'm just going to reposition the vehicle again. There's a few bushes that are just in the wrong place for us to see what's going on. But as you can see, the impala are very relaxed with our presence, so we're not having an impact on their morning. They're so caught up in their own battles. Here we go, here we go, here we go. So this is the male who appears dominant over this small patch of turf and the ladies that he's managed to round up within it. The other male that approached is now showing signs of avoiding confrontation and has probably already been chased away several times by the other male. What I can tell you is that we got really, really close to seeing impala mating, and look, here they are again. Will we get to see it? It's something that I've seen so rarely, and another male's coming running into the mix now, chasing another female. Just got a question through from Lucy and James. Good morning, and thanks so much for sending your question through. Lucy and James would like to know, how long does this rutting period last for? And it's about a 1 month period, and it's often kicked off in and around the first full moon in May. So that's often a trigger for the impala, and it's quite interesting that it's a 1 month rutting period. It's quite short relative to other antelope who may mate over several months at this time of year. And the reason, or the thing that makes this so important to the success of impala, is that it ensures that all of the young are born within a 1 month period. So basically the predators only have a 1 month window in which to capitalize on very young, inexperienced foals or lambs, whereas if they were to give birth over a very long period, you can see how he uses his legs, his front legs, he kind of kicks them up, and he also does a lot of sniffing and licking of his lips, processing the scent of this female. It would be incredible if we actually saw them mating. Like I said, something that's seen so rarely, and I'm not sure of the reason behind it. They usually do rut predominantly in the cooler hours of the day, But the whole of last night we could hear them running around quarantine, chasing one another, rutting. And Chris, Road Cropper, alerted us to that, and thanks very much for your update. Chris heard them on the Djuma Waterhole cam, which is a live camera. And thanks for those updates. Just going to roll forward and see if we can't get any more views of this early morning courting. And what a morning it is here. This is a bit of a tricky spot for Brian because there's a lot of bushes, but they are quite close to us, so let's see what happens. And Susie Johnson's just mentioned that they sound like hippos. And you're right, Susie, it's not hugely different to the call of a hippo. It also could confuse a call of a leopard, which has a rasping sound, almost like sawing through wood. And you can hear how the noise I've just made is fairly similar to what these impala are making. So the initial noise that he makes is a nasal snort, and that progresses into the strange gurgling roar. Now, you'll notice that this impala has been on the move non-stop, and this can be the downfall to their success. They can only probably sustain themselves for a few days at this rate, and then another impala who hasn't been in the pilot seat will probably come in and take charge. It's highly unlikely that one male would be able to secure a territory for a whole month at this rate. They don't spend much time feeding and lose condition fairly quickly. They also provide the predators with a relatively easy source of prey with this gurgling noise that they make. It rings out and can be heard from kilometers away. And it's not uncommon to find lion or leopard heading straight in the direction of this noise. They know that they're going to hopefully position themselves in an area where one of these males could simply run into them. Chris in Australia, good morning. Chris would like to know what time of the day do they mate, and it certainly is probably increased or more likely during the cooler hours of the day, in the morning and the afternoon. But it certainly will also happen at night, and we did hear them last night, all night, calling and chasing one another around. It's something that I've very rarely seen, so I think a lot of it does happen at night, but that's just my personal opinion. Various textbooks will have different opinions on this matter. Virginia in Kentucky has just asked a great question. Morning, Virginia. Virginia would like to know whether the male impala will only mate once with any given female. I don't think so. I'm fairly certain it would take several copulations to ensure that there is a successful mating. And I think a lot of the time with animals, especially the animals that have got a very short copulation, like impala, the male will literally jump onto her back and slide off. It's a split-second maneuver. And often in the case, in these kinds of cases rather, it will require many copulations, many short copulations. But having said this, though, it's a hard one for me to say I've seen and witnessed, because I have only seen impala actually mating a handful of times, and that's why I'm led to think that a lot of it happens after dark. Either that or in privacy behind all these bushes we see them running behind. He's really having a go at that bush, displaying his strength and dominance. Well, it's good to hear that a lot of you are enjoying this interesting behavior of the impala. It's an animal that can be overlooked because they are fairly numerous, but when they're performing like this, it certainly makes for a good start to the morning. Well, folks, that was a really interesting start, and it's something we've been talking about so much over the last few weeks, the male impala's rutting season, but we've hardly been able to show it to you. So I'm glad you've got a bit of a look into the life of loved up impala. And for now, we're going to carry on. There's still a few more weeks for us to show you this interesting action with the impala. But I think it's time to go and check up on Marc and how he's doing, following up with the lion tracks of the Nkuhuma Pride. We're going to continue and see what we can find, and we'll see you a bit later.
Warm welcome from a fresh morning here at Djuma Game Reserve with our sunrise safari, and a beautiful sunrise actually. We just come out of a little bit of mist. My name is Marc. VM is on camera with me this morning. Hello everybody. And we have been following the Nkuhuma Pride of Lion since about just after 6 this morning. We went straight back to where they were yesterday, and I followed their tracks from there. They headed straight south, cut across to the old hyena den just off Philemon's Dip. From there they must have gone to Treehouse Dam. Excuse me. Gosh, interrupted, sorry. So they must have gone to Treehouse Dam, and from Treehouse Dam they turned east towards Twin Dams, and we followed their tracks all the way across the riverbed at Twin Dams. They cut through the bush, coming on to, this is Gowrie Main, and we are on our southeastern corner. This little corner up ahead of us, over here, you can see there's almost like a crossroad. On the left-hand side is the very, very top end of, or southeastern corner of Djuma. On the right-hand side of the road over here, this corner here, this is another property, and then going east from this little junction up ahead is, well, Chetwa on the right and Tortridge on the left. Now, the lion tracks come to exactly here. And it was, I suppose, fairly good timing that you crossed over to us as I got to the end of the lion tracks. Well, it's the end of, for me, at any rate. They come up the road and they have turned in over here. You can see there's almost a little game path that runs through here. Here you can see the pathway. And they've gone in there. So we're going to have to leave the lion tracks. They've obviously gone on a big walkabout. Interestingly, there were tracks of a very big male. When maybe we can go back towards that. We're going to just have a look up. I think we'll have a look up Cheetah Cut Line for a little bit, and then maybe come back down towards Leadwood Road. And I want to go back to Twin Dams because there were tracks of a big male lion heading that way, and I think it might be one of the Matimbas. So join us. Let's go and see what's up Cheetah Cut Line. An interesting tracking exercise and fun as well. Still one or two of them here on the road, but they have gone south. Somewhat misty Monday morning. And when we get a mist, a very fine mist that was not a really low-lying one, but it does tend to fill up the spider webs. Do I know what the last animal to go extinct in South Africa was? What was the last animal? This requires a little bit of thought. The last large mammal would probably have been an animal known as a bluebuck. It was a relative of the sable and the roan antelope. And that was probably around the late 1800s, maybe. Also the Cape lion, although I guess you could say it was probably a subspecies. As far as I know, the Cape mountain, like the Cape lion, that probably was wiped out long before even the bluebuck. That's it. Difficult question. I'm trying to think of birds or fish. I think we have lost a number of fish species from the introduction of things like largemouth bass and trout in some of the rivers. Hello, Paula. Andrew.
Hello, morning.
Oh.
Good morning, Andrew. Very well, Ali. Yeah.
Run off rutting.
Okay. your way.
And where are you now, Alex?
Come on to the gut line heading up from Jolly Dam, so I won't be long.
I'll take you trying.
Sorry, Franklin, causing havoc. Ooh, the little pokey Franklin.
Just gonna get a closer look. On your roller, but I'll let you know.
It's stopped and it's so well camouflaged. It's not a very common Francolin. Lucy, morning Lucy. Lucy was just inquiring about temperature. We're running at about 16. It's probably dropped to even maybe 15 with the sun coming up, which is Celsius. It's about 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Clear blue skies. And we'll be cruising at an altitude of about 1,000 feet. And you see that gorgeous little Francolin. This looks like it could be a female. Now, if you didn't know it was there, you probably wouldn't see it. And I only saw it because she moved. But staying still like that is one of her best defenses. Koqui, spelled C-O-Q-U-I. Pretty about the smallest of all the Francolin that we have here. We do get other smaller partridge type birds known as button quail. About as small as a sparrow, the button quails, and the button quail chicks are even smaller. And they're almost impossible to see, button quail, because they're so much smaller than Francolins and even better camouflage. The only time one really gets to see them is when they may be flushed by an animal or flushed by a vehicle if they're next to the road. And often when they fly up from the grasses, where they land, they'll stay. They'll land and then stay with it. So if you can pinpoint a place where they land, you might be able to find them again. But once they spook, it's very hard to catch up with them. There are a number of bird species that live here that are around us, but we very rarely get to see them. wildearth.tv. That's our email address. Question came in from Gail in Calgary, asking about the humps we have in the road. We won't see them on a road like this. We'll mostly only see them let me show you what Gail is talking about. You'll only really see them on roads that run downhill, as opposed to a road running across the ridge like Cheetah Cutline. But if we have a look down Central Road here, you can see there's a hump. And with these humps, you'll notice there's wherever there is one, you'll see how the side of it has been dug away. It's what we call a mitre drain, and these humps in the road are to basically push water off of the road so that water doesn't run down the road, because water running down the road will cause very bad erosion. And so every now and then when you're going down a slope, you'll find these mitre drains, and they are man-made, Gail, for that reason. Drainage. Erosion can change things quite dramatically. There is a very, very narrow layer of topsoil here, and sometimes we get to see a profile of it maybe in the riverbeds or where things have been dug away, maybe by elephants. But the nutrient layer of soil that feeds everything is a very, very shallow layer, and if one doesn't prepare for or protect against erosion, you can lose a lot of topsoil. And of course that has a lot of knock-on effects. Topsoil washes down the riverbeds into the rivers, starts silting up rivers. It eventually gets washed out to sea, starts choking corals. And this is mild here. I mean, it's negligible with the roads that we have. Pretty stable environment. But where you have deforestation in parts of excuse me, like Central Africa or South America, the destruction of forests, well, it gets worse in areas like that because the forests protect the soil so much. Done our eastern boundary, not much coming across. The odd buffalo track and impala track. So we're going to start making our way back south again, and maybe we'll head west towards Arathusa. We've got quite a distance to cover, but we can try and do that. Those elephants that we saw yesterday sound like a good plan. So I'm going to hand you over to Scott, and he'll be back with us in no time. So enjoy another side of Djuma, and I'll see you in a little while.
Welcome back, everyone, and we are about to arrive at Buffelshoek Dam, not knowing what we could find here, but we thought it would be nice to join you in on the arrival here. It's such a beautiful still morning. I wonder who's going to be at the waterhole. Will we have enough momentum to get into a good spot? It doesn't look like it. So our stealthy approach was not with enough speed. It's one of my favorite places on Djuma, this waterhole. I'm Not sure exactly what it is that has caused me to really like this place. Possibly we've had so many good sightings here. Or maybe it's just the pretty scenery. Well, there's one mammal in the area and one bird, and these two animals are the Buffelshoek Hook Dam locals. The mammal is the hippo, which you can see over here. Some parrots just flew past. That's the screeching noise you can hear. They've actually just landed, and hopefully they're going to stick around for a moment or two. There's two of them perched on the top of a bush willow tree. They're a little bit obstructed now, but you'll still get an idea of their beautiful colorations, and it appears that they are feeding on the four-winged seed pods of this bush willow tree. You can see the rusty red colored seed pods, and they'll have to break those open. In the center of one of these pods are the seeds that they'll be feeding on, helping this plant to disperse its seeds throughout this property in their droppings, thus helping the plant greatly in seed dispersal. Without the help of these parrots, I'll show you a bit later, they rely on wind to disperse their seed, and that's why it's a four-winged pod, so that it rolls when the wind blows. You get two-winged seed pods as well that will be transported by water, like a little raft. It's not easy to see at the moment, but you can see how the parrots are using their feet to help them, no different to other parrots around the world. They've got very dexterous little talons that they can use like hands. And this is the brown-headed parrot. It's the only parrot we get in this area. I'm wondering if I can reposition ever so slightly. I'm just going to try and reverse a tiny bit, and we may get a few better angles on them. Oh no, that backfired. Anyway, a good start to the morning. There's not too much else going on here at the waterhole, and I don't suspect too much more to happen until things heat up. Obviously there's a chance an animal could come and have a drink now, but it's more likely during the hotter hours of the day. Well, we're going through a little dip. The signal may shake and shudder for a moment or two, but it'll be fine as we come out on the other side. Sadly, it sounds like in Kahuma Pride. Apologies for that short dip in signal, but it's got to do with that deep little ravine we just went through below the dam. As I was saying a little bit earlier, that sounds like, sadly, the Nkahuma Pride have crossed out of Djuma. But we had a great few days spent with them, and it was one of the longer periods we've had lion on the property for, so really grateful for that. And we are now all hoping that hopefully we can find you a leopard this morning. I think there may have been some tracks called in on the southeastern part of our property where Mark's been snooping about. And I think we're going to head in that direction. There's been nothing really evident in terms of signs or sounds from the bush that there are any predators in this area around the northeastern part of the property. Chris in California, good morning, and thanks for sending your question through. Chris is interested to know, how do chameleons and snakes and other reptiles deal with the cold in winter? Well, it's a great question, and interesting enough, quite a few snakes move around during the winter and actually mate in the winter. They are probably less active than they would be in the summer months, but that's not to say that they cannot move during winter. Our winters can have quite warm days, 25 to 30 degrees Celsius, which is around 70 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, roughly, I'm guessing. So quite warm days, and this allows them to heat up, bask in the sun, and warm up enough in order to be able to move. Chameleons we see a lot less in winter, and they will hide out in thick bushes or even within cavities in trees and basically hibernate to a degree. It's not as intensive as a hibernation in areas where it gets snow and it's very cold and inhospitable. It's not quite that bad here. We very seldom even get frost here. But it is fair to say that the reptiles are less active during the summer months, and they simply bunker down in winter. Now I'm driving very slowly in the hope that we're going to find some paw prints of anything interesting walking down these roads. But all I can see is some old elephant sign, which we have on the road on the right. But sometimes when you can't see anything, it's good to just stop and listen. And we might get some clues from the animals, which may be alarm calling at any potential threats. Jeffrey in Texas, good morning, and Jeffrey's asking a similar question to what Chris has just asked, and Jeff would like to know, do the animals use burrows more in the winters as hiding places? And I think it's certainly fair to say that they do. A lot of the animals will crawl into the warm excavated tunnels and networks of burrows that are made by some animals when they're looking for food. But later on they create keystone figures or keystone kind of monuments, you could say, that are critical to the other animals' survival. And lots of sharing is done amongst animals. You occasionally have porcupine and hyena in the same den site. It's not common, but it does happen. Bizarre relationships where animals may share burrows if there's not enough around in the colder months. Well, I haven't heard anything here, but we're going to continue. I'm feeling that for some reason my gut feel is telling me to go left and not right. Suggestion through from Bateleur suggesting that I could try and imitate a male impala rutting in order to try and call in a leopard. And there's two fundamental problems with that, Bateleur. The first is that to make that noise is extremely difficult, and I don't even know where to start. So I was actually trying to make the noise for Tara this morning, and it's such a difficult noise to imitate, that of the male impala snorting and gurgling and roaring. And the other problem is, and I know you were joking, is that we wouldn't in any way want to give a leopard or any other animal a false call in order to increase or benefit our own viewing. But it was just a funny joke, and I don't think I could try all day to call an impala, and if a leopard came, it would be through default more than anything else. It's a great day to see tracks, and the reason why is that we've got good sunlight, and the sunlight at the moment is getting cast from a very low angle because the sun's only just risen. Now when looking for tracks, this low angle of the sun helps us to see them because it casts a shadow on the walls of the track. As soon as the weather's overcast or the sun's right above us pointing straight down, we don't get those shadows on the tracks, and the ground can look like a blank canvas. And I'm hoping if I find a nice sandy patch of soil, I'll be able to show you exactly what I mean. This is not the best road for it, although there are patches where it does become quite good, and that's another thing to factor in when tracking. Some roads are easy to track on because they're very sandy. Others, the substrate is a little bit different, or more hard or more compacted, where animals will leave a less clear print as they move along. Okay, well, it sounds Marc has found a beautiful, beautiful sighting for all of you, so enjoy what he has in store, and we will catch up with you a little bit later.
Any guesses, folks? Any guesses as to what birds these are? And you can let me know via Twitter, #SafariLive, or you can send an answer just in the subject line. Don't have to send a whole email. questions@wildearth.tv. Beautiful morning light. It's very seldom that we get to see these magnificent birds in such beautiful light. They were a little bit closer to us earlier as I arrived here, but I think they were just a little bit too intimidated by the car, so they flew further back into that dead tree. They have been nesting in this area for many years now. There's a road named after them, not too far away. And I'm curious if any of you know who they are. Well, while I'm waiting for some tweets and emails, I'll tell you a little bit about them. They are hunters. They are also scavengers, and they're actually a very interesting bird because they have a couple of unique features. As an adult, they have a very much shortened tail, and so they don't have that stability of the tail in flight, and so they have a very distinctive flight, which is it's a rocking kind of a flight. They rock from side to side. They soar at a very low altitude of only about 200 to 300 feet. They are not birds that rely on thermals as much as they just rely on a little bit of the warm air to keep them up. And they actually don't soar like most other eagles.
they fly in a grid type of pattern. They fly up and down their territory, either hunting or looking for a carcass or perhaps a kill. And quite often, finding these birds in a tree might indicate a carcass or a predator nearby, in particular a leopard. They are famous for hanging about leopard kills, along with another cousin of theirs, and of course 1 or 2 small vulture species. But since I've been here for a number of years now, I've known a pair of them to nest nearby. Sometimes we even see 3 of them in the tree. We've had 3 adults at one time, which is probably one of the youngsters leaving, but we often see them with the youngster. And it takes about 7 years for them to get their adult plumage, so the youngsters do hang around for quite a while. Georgianne, Sam, Virginia, Ramay, Power, Funk, and Diane, and Katrina, and Jerry. Everybody getting it right. I don't think there's been one wrong answer. So I guess we've got some keen birders out there. Indeed, the Bateleur snake eagle, also known as the short-tailed eagle. A group of eagles known as the snake eagles that are quite specialist snake and reptile hunters. Very striking eagles. Quite beautiful. Red feet, red beak. Okay, let's continue. It was a nice find. Both of them preening. Probably got a little bit damp overnight from the dew. Now I can tell you a little bit of an update. The Nkuhumas, although they crossed south, they must have still been heading east, and at some point much further east from us, they must have crossed back over Gowrie Main and then turned north into Torchwood, because they have just been found at Torchwood Dam, which is, excuse me, Franklin. Yes, follow your husband. Thank you. Crested Franklin. So it's due east of us by some distance. I'm not too sure how far. It's probably about half a mile, maybe. Maybe not so far, maybe quarter mile. I'm not too sure how far in Torchwood Dam is, but it is a bit too far to hope that they might come back this way today. So just to recap, from where the lions were, they went south past the hyena den onto Weaver's Nest, and then they headed east from Weaver's Nest to Twin Dams, and then all the way up Gowrie Main, and have ended up on Torchwood, at Torchwood Dam, which is due east of us right now. But I'm going to go back to Gowrie Main, and I'm going to go back to see if we can find out what happened to that big male. There were tracks of a very big male. As Scott was saying earlier, and when you were at Biffles of Dam, I think he was talking about the morning light that we have and how good it is for tracking, and it was ideal. We were just getting the sunrise coming through, and it was fairly easy to follow those lion tracks, especially since there were 8 of them. Made it quite easy. Not so easy when you've got this one cat like the leopard that treads very lightly. But with 8 lion, I could see where they got to Twin Dams, where they crossed into the riverbed at that big jackalberry, and I could see that because of the dew and the dampness of the sand, You see, very soft sand sometimes it caves in after an animal steps in it. So sometimes you don't really know what animal it was. All you see is a conical depression in the sand, and you have to sort of guess. You don't really know what animal it was. All you see is a conical depression in the sand, and you have to sort of guess. You look at the gait, and you look at the spacing between footprints, and you can sort of gauge what animal it was. But this morning the lion tracks were quite distinct. You could still see the toes in the soft riverbed, in that river sand. And then, of course, because there hasn't been very much traffic as yet, there'd been one or two cars, probably crack of dawn, that must have headed up Gowrie Main, but 8 lion that weren't necessarily walking in single file. They were all over the road. They were lying down. There were places where we could see where they'd been lying down. And they must have slept for a while. But interestingly, they were found because Andrew from one of the other lodges, Andrew used to be a part of Juma, but Andrews was after a leopard, and he had actually seen a leopard from a distance, and he was trying to find the leopard again, and he found the lion, and the leopard was calling, and they actually got interested in the sound of the leopard calling and went in that direction. So I'm waiting to hear what might happen. Scott, come in.
Morning, Mark.
I did copy that they had one towards Torchwood Dam, but no, I inquired that evidently it was quite far from Cheetah Cut Line, but if it's getting closer, where are you now?
I'm at the Quarry Stone. I'll just stand by there and see what happens.
I'm on Leadwood. I'm close to getting closer back to Twin Dams. Maybe if you want to go up to the cut line and see if it's going to come out there. I wanted to follow up on big male line tracks that I saw at Twin Dams.
Okay, something doesn't. I'll stand by. Yeah.
Okay, mate, good luck. So Scott is from Buffelshoek Dam has gone up to Quarry Pan, so he's quite close to Cheetah Cut Line, and that leopard that I've just mentioned now actually might be coming out towards Cheetah Cut Line, so Scott's going to stand by there and hopefully it might come out. Andrew seems to think it might be Tundi. Who is Karula's daughter, sister of Shadow, who we see sometimes at Arethusa. Speaking of Arethusa, I'm going to try and make our way there. Scott is up in this part. This is the eastern part of the world. What a sort of tail. Let's try and cover a slightly different area. But also there's been a big herd of elephants at Arethusa, and they were back at the dam. One of our zoomies, thank you. I don't remember who that was. Somebody mentioned, was it Barbara? Somebody mentioned that the ellies were back at Arethusa Dam, which had been about midnight. Which means that they may be just feeding in loops and getting back to the dam when they're thirsty, unless it's other elephants. To go back to Scott. Scott's got something to show you, and I'm going to see if I can find something too. So I'll see you in a short while.
I'll come back, and this isn't an animal we see very much of at the moment. They are such pretty animals, the zebra. And if you look closely, you'll notice that the foal is busy nursing. So we've hit the jackpot here. And the reason why we are in this area is that we are hoping that a female leopard that's been found on a neighboring property will continue heading towards us. She is heading towards Djuma. And how lucky have we got that while we are waiting here for the leopard, we've come across this beautiful herd of zebra. Now, the reason why we don't get too many zebra here, especially at this time of the year, is mainly because of habitat. They like eating very short grass, and there's not many open grassy plains in this area of the Sabi Sands. And it just goes to show that even though it's an iconic animal of Africa, it's not one that we see very much of here. And interestingly enough, the field guides here, whose guests will typically come for 2 or 3 nights, will often spend their last morning game drive in search of zebra, hoping to show their guests, having ticked off a lot of typically harder to find animals like lion and leopard. And different to the impala that are rutting at the moment, zebra will compete for a harem of females throughout the year. So there will be one stallion here with all of his ladies, and it's an ongoing process, so there's not an increased rutting period. They do have their mating season, but they will fight for females throughout the year and try and maintain their harem. So interesting, the different social dynamics between the animals. To differentiate between male and female is not very easy on the zebra, but the individual on the far right of your screen, as she faces away, you'll notice there's a vertical black stripe between her hindquarters, and this is indicative of a female. Males, their rumps will touch, so it'll be white on white, and they won't have that vertical black stripe below the tail. So that's one of the easier ways to distinguish. You'll see a fork-tailed drongo in the background. Quite a common character to see following herbivores, especially the larger herbivores, because the drongo knows that by hanging around these animals, there's a chance that they will chase up insects that the drongo can then fly down and catch.
Ja, if you want to boeie
Alex is not there yet.
I'm just going to have a quick chat with Aubrey, one of the guides. He is with this female leopard, and I just want to understand exactly where she is and the chances of her coming here.
Okay, I'm in North Road, so heading north. Looking for Nyani this morning. Andrew, John Collick.
What I will do in the meantime, though, while I wait for my gap on the radio, is try and get us a little bit closer to the zebra.
Thanks very much. We had a good bowie there, the inquiry on it. It dropped some guests off and met some more now quickly. Where do you leave those in Gala?
I hope they don't run off. They're looking a little bit skittish, but I'm sure we'll get a few more great views of them. I'm hoping to show you the stallion and the difference in the rump. Oh, look at this. Awesome. They are all popping out into a bit of a clearing, so we should get a few more great views. Here we go.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
You'll notice how different the stripes are, and just like a leopard has its own unique spots, zebra have their own unique patterns, just like our fingerprints. And they are mesmerizing, the coats, and I often enjoy starting on one stripe at one end of the body and following the flow and pattern through. Such a unique kind of camouflage to have, and this is called disruptive camouflage. It helps to confuse the predator by not only breaking up the animal's body into many different pieces and shapes, but also when they are in a herd moving like this, they all kind of merge into one being, making it difficult for the predators to distinguish one animal from another, which makes singling out and targeting any given individual, a weak member, a little bit more tricky for them. Aubrey for Scott. Okay, well, incredible how they can just dissolve so effortlessly into the undergrowth, but they are heading towards a little road, so we may get one last view of them. Aubrey for Scott. Morning, Orbs. I'm just on pipeline, Cheetah Cutline. What's she doing? Is she still mobile northwest? Do you think she's going to pop out here?
Yeah, she's back and forth, yeah. But, yeah, she's going in northwest direction. She was talking the mountains from a still. She gave up now. She's heading towards the pipeline. Northwest.
Okay, copy, thanks. I'll stand by here if you don't mind just keeping me updated. Okay, well, good news, folks. I'm not sure if you copied that transmission from Aubrey, but basically he said that she's been moving kind of up and down, but her general direction is northwest. She got a bit distracted hunting some animals, but they ran off. But we are going to stand by here, and while we wait, I did pick some of the seeds from two different plants. This is from a bush willow, and this is the four-wing pod that you saw the wind blow away there, and that is exactly how they get dispersed. Apologies. By having four wings like that, it allows the wind to transport the seeds into a new area where they'll germinate. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this little seed case open to show you what the parrots were feeding on. There's not much, but within this seed pod is a little seed. So it's a huge transport device that the plants have in this pod to transport this tiny little seed. And that's what the parrots are feeding on. Now, that was from a bush willow, a red bush willow tree. And now this next seed pod is the two-winged variety. So the four-winged gets transported by wind, and the two-winged, like this, gets transported by water. And you can just imagine it floating down a river or wherever there's a little bit of rain and a downpour. These seeds will be transported, and again, it's just one tiny little seed within this shell. This one's a bit harder to break open. I'm actually battling to get into it. But within here, somewhere, there will be a seed. I can't break into it though. But again, a big transport vessel for a very small seed inside. So I guess the plants have got their own backup plan in either wind or water transporting their seeds, but a lot of the time the animals that feed on their plants and seeds are actually doing them a favor by also ensuring that they get transported. And I guess when the birds do drop off the seeds after digesting them, the seed is also coated in a potential form of nutrition and minerals to also help that seed growing. A little fertilizer spot. Good. Well, what I think we can do is we can go on a very short drive around, see what we can find while we do wait in this general area. The road to our right is called Pipeline Road, and at the moment the leopard is somewhere further to the right, and she's basically heading towards us from that general direction. She could pop out onto this road, and I'm hoping if she does, she will use it like a major highway to bring herself straight into Djuma and hopefully towards Buffalo's Hook Dam, because that again is the general vector that she's heading in. Some of you may remember this road. We spent an incredible afternoon with Mvula, the dominant male leopard, and at the end of the drive he headed away from us down this road. It was a beautiful, beautiful sighting then, and potentially we'll be treated to another beautiful sighting this morning, but with the leopard heading towards us rather than away from us, starting our morning with her rather than ending our afternoon like we did with him. The same question from Lewis, Charlie and Lynn, all interested to know about a specific zebra that was seen a few weeks ago. I think Brent was the one that saw it, and he actually got a few photos of it. It had quite a severe gash on its hind quarters, and no, I haven't seen it. I don't know, Brian, have you seen it recently? No. So we're not sure if it's been eaten, which could have happened, or it could simply have moved off to another area. From what I heard, the injury was bad, but animals are incredibly resilient, and even an injury which may appear to be quite bad and which may cause the animal to limp and appear to be not in the best condition may actually be a little bit confusing, because as soon as a lion or a leopard comes around, that zebra runs off as if there's nothing wrong with it. You may complain about an injury or an ailment, but if push comes to shove and you need to get from A to B, you make a plan and you do it. So that is something to remember with the animals that are injured. Sadly though, we are not sure where exactly that zebra has ended up, but they do move, and we've even noticed quite intense movements of both zebra and wildebeest from the summer into the winter, and their numbers have certainly decreased. Well, interestingly enough, these zebra came down this road towards us before we found them, so their general direction was moving from the north to the south, and their hooves are exactly the same as a horseshoe. I'm going to try and find some clear ones to show you here, but it's one of the easier tracks to recognize out here. Where's a good one? Am I too close, or we'll just be able to work it out. So you can see the very distinctive horseshoe. I'm just going to jump out to show you clearly which one exactly and which direction they're pointing in. Which one are you on? Next one? Next one? That one there. So the track here, the horseshoe is in that direction, and if you go to the next one down, can you? You'll also see, again heading in this direction, a very small depression at the front of the toe as it would have pushed forward. So that's one of the easier tracks, and again just useful for us to know where the animals are moving and where they've come from. Well folks, while myself and Brian hang around here in the hope of a leopard's arrival, let's head on to Marc and see how his morning's coming along, and we'll catch up with you a little bit later.
Hi, welcome back. And once again, fairly good timing, because I've just found something. We're at a quite an important junction. It's a junction on Gowrie Main. We're south of Treehouse Dam. And we're on this junction where Bum Road, where it comes onto Gowrie Main and this little Gowrie entrance, and there are leopard tracks that I'm sure either human or quarantine male. I'm going to see if I can show you the tracks. Hyena tracks following it. So let me go forward a little bit. And then try and forward. Better go backwards to go forwards. I want to turn, angle the vehicle so that we can show you the tracks. So in that tire track over there are the tracks of young Kunuma or quarantine. I'm afraid I can't tell the difference between the two as yet. And then just a little bit closer are the tracks of a hyena that are about the same age as the leopard tracks. There you can see the hyena tracks almost parallel, and I'm guessing that maybe the hyena was following the leopard. So I was on the way to Arathusa, but I think now that we've got one of our cats coming back onto Gowrie, I think let's see if we can find something. The lion tracks that I had crossed over, I mentioned it I think, crossed over onto Little Gowrie. Let's see if we can see where this cat went. Yeah, kitty, kitty, kitty. Might have taken that pathway, shortcut down towards Treehouse Dam, because he didn't come here, or did he? No, not looking. I'm seeing the hyena tracks come this way, but I'm not seeing any of the leopard tracks. This is Spum Road. We need to go onto the Treehouse Dam Road. Find his tracks further on. Still nothing. So far, let's see. I think let's get down towards the dam. There they are. Okay, he was walking down to the dam. And now I'm fairly confident, since he's on the road and he's heading towards the dam, he's clearly making his way from one area to another. And unless there was something here like a duiker or a steenbok or a impala that he went after, my guess is there I can see his tracks now. So heading straight. So we're going to try and jump the gun a bit. Instead of following each and every footprint, I'm going to take the general direction, and the next time we're going to check where he went is when we get closer to the dam and around the dam wall and the roads leading away from the dam, if he's not lying up next to the water. Should we hold our thumbs, cross our fingers, and knock on wood, and all those other things? Look at this here. You can see these tracks very clearly in this morning light, just up ahead in the right-hand side of the road. Kitty. Brown-hooded kingfisher. You're going to be able to see it. Trying to get a better view, and off he flew. Back to the tracks. In the road, still heading towards the dam. He might have come.
There's a nice and cold.
Straight down to the water. And this is where now we have to see where he came away. If he's not down there, then we'll have to see if we can find his tracks leading up from the water. But he definitely took the pathway down there. There is an impala ram here, which is a bit disappointing. Not that there's an impala ram here, but just that if there's an impala ram, I doubt whether there's a leopard. Which means that he was here much earlier. Probably about the time we were following leopard tracks. There goes a steenbok running away. Just make sure he didn't come back this way and head down that road. Nothing here. Oh, what's that? Okay, I'm going to carry on tracking this cat, and in the meantime I think Scott's got a big surprise for you, so we're going to cross over to Scott while I'm trying to find where this leopard came back from the water, and I'll be back with you shortly. Hopefully I'll be able to find him.
Welcome back, folks, and we've got some great news, and sorry to take you away from Mark following those very fresh leopard tracks. That's so exciting, but in a way it's a blessing in disguise, because now you can focus on trying to find that leopard. You may need to jump on and off the vehicle, and you can stay with us, because we know it's just a matter of seconds until Karula pops out. Now this is the leopard we've been waiting for. It is indeed Karula. He's a female leopard. His territory encompasses Djuma, but we haven't seen very much of her recently. And it's probably been well over a week that we saw her. And we've just got a glimpse of Aubrey in his vehicle. She crossed over a road and is now in the bush heading somewhere roughly towards us. She could pop out at any stage, so help us to find her, please, as Brian pans through this thick vegetation. We need all the help we can get to spot her, and I wonder who's going to spot her first. we may get some help from squirrels or Franklin that may detect her as she moves, and that'll help us pinpoint where she could be moving, but at the moment it's dead silence. Brian's got a big smile on his face waiting in. And also possibly get themselves into trouble, especially for leopard. Leopard don't want to bump into pride of lion, even wild dogs or a clan of hyena. They could get themselves into a spot of bother, so they will be very cautious. Her general direction of movements has been north and west, which makes sense as to why she would have crossed over the road that she did, because that road runs exactly east-west. But she is still heading towards us, and I have just seen Aubrey's vehicle off-roading in the general area where Brian is scanning with the camera. So good prospects. He can stay with her and keep an eye on her as she moves towards us, and he'll continue to update us as he has been as to what exactly she is doing. And it seems like she may have already moved a little bit further north of where we are, so we shall reposition and stand by in another place. Such good prospects. Marc following fresh leopard tracks, possibly Kunyuma or Quarantine, I would guess, judging by the area that those tracks are moving in, but who knows, it could be a surprise. Either way, the last leopard we saw was on Tuesday. That was the only one we saw last week. And I'm hoping this week our leopard luck changes and we have an influx of sightings.
What happened to that mongoose that you had on Cinema's cat line this morning?
Maybe this termite mound that you can see is going to be a landmark that she could head towards. Leopard will often move from termite mound to termite mound and use them as vantage points on which they can survey their surroundings. If she does creep up over this termite mound, it'll be absolutely beautiful. They often get into full stalk mode and almost slither up the back of a mound, and we'll just get her eyes and ears poking up carefully, making sure she doesn't give herself away to anything that could be on the opposite side. Now, I'm hoping Aubrey hasn't lost her in this thick vegetation. There's a chance he has. But that's not a problem. I'm confident we'll find her. We've got a long stretch of straight road that I'm fairly confident we'll spot her on as she crosses, even if it's behind us. I'm searching in a 180-degree kind of vector in the general direction that she's been moving. Brian, did you get a glimpse of her as she crossed the road earlier? Well, not okay. So it's both of us haven't seen her yet, but we know she's nearby. And like many scenarios we face out here, patience can be our best friend. And we will continue to be patient, and it is going to certainly be worth waiting for, I can assure you, when we do lay eyes on this female leopard with this perfect golden morning sunlight. We are going to be in for a treat. the bird you can hear calling is a very pretty bird, and I'm going to open this one up to the floor. Can anybody ID the bird that's calling? I'll imitate the call with a whistle just so that you're all sure of the same one. It's kind of my impression. It'll call again now. There you go. It's a very, very pretty bird with bright colors. That is the only clues I will give you. So send your answers to questions@wildearth.tv or hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. And in the birding world, it is actually accepted to identify a bird. It counts as an identification, or a sighting, you could say, by simply identifying its call. You don't necessarily need to lock eyes on it. This is the long straight road that she could pop out onto. Have you still got a visual of her, Orbs?
They are positive, changing the direction, heading east again. That's the case now.
Uh-oh.
But I still move.
Okay, copy, thank you. We'll still wait here. Well, if you didn't hear that message from Aubrey, I'll relay it to you, and it's not the best news we've heard all morning. She's changed direction, and from being so close to us, she is now heading in the opposite direction. But she could well just change direction again and keep coming. Her general direction of movement has been towards us. What would have caused her to change direction could be a number of many things. She could have smelt some prey, got the sense of another leopard, or simply just changed her mood. Well, apologies. I really was excited about the prospects of her popping up. And there still is a chance that she will. Like I say, general movements has been consistently bringing her closer to this boundary road. And just at the last moment, she's veered off track. And the animals always do keep us guessing out here. And that's what makes it exciting and fun. And the good news is that Aubrey is still with her. And that is fundamental. So the fact that there is still somebody with her who can keep us updated on her movements is huge. But again, we're just going to have to put on our extra patience, because we don't really have another option. Patience is our only option. While we stop and wait and listen, you'll notice that this termite mound has got almost a chimney-like structure, and that's exactly what it is. It helps to regulate the temperature within inside this termite mound, and there's a hive of activity in there. There's basically a indoor farming system where the termites will farm a fungus which actually helps to break down their own feces. So they'll consume the dead plant matter, which is very hard to break down, and then deliver their droppings into a farming area, you could say, almost cultivated fields of fungus. And this fungus that grows on and breaks down their feces and their droppings is then fed on by them. So it allows them to feed twice on the same substance, but the fungus helps to break it down to a more digestible matter. Now, all the farming and all this digestion and breaking down and decomposing by the fungus creates a lot of energy and warmth. And this warmth can either be kept inside the termite mound by keeping that hole that you can see in the chimney closed, or they can open it up to let things cool down a bit inside there. And there can be millions and millions of termites within one mound. Basically a whole world of activity going on in there.
Everything now is still facing northeast. Yeah, maybe she's gonna come back here. Never mind. But she's still following them into finish permanent.
Okay, copy. Thanks, Orbs. Thanks very much for your help. Okay, folks, well, it sounds like she's following the trail of some steenbuck that she chased off, and we're not sure what she's going to do. It might be worth heading back over to see how Mark's coming along with his tracks and tracking, and I'm going to chat with Aubrey now. He's just right here and get a better idea of exactly what he thinks is going to happen. We'll catch up with you a bit later.
Well, that sounds like it was very frustrating. Karula almost there, but turning around and then heading in another direction is quite sad. I've been on the trail of one of her sons. At the moment I don't have tracks because it looks like he crossed into an area between Philemon's cut line and Zoe's road and Rebecca's road, which is quite a large area, so we can do a little bit of a loop around, and it might get us past the hyena den, so we might pop in there and have a look. But the only option that we have is to try and head up here and see if he comes out onto this road after he came up from Treehouse Dam. We followed his tracks all the way down to Treehouse Dam, and then from Treehouse Dam, so he sort of came down the one road to Treehouse Dam and then almost did a 90 degree and went up the other road, clearly stopping at the dam for a drink, no doubt, because of the angle of his trajectory of his movement. And that'll bring him out somewhere maybe onto this road closer to the hyena den. So the only chance we have right now is to try and find his track coming out onto this road, and of course see what else we can see along the way. You never know what there is. Welcome to our sunrise safari, a beautiful Monday morning. Starting to warm up a little bit, little patches of cloud keeping the sun faint, but it is managing to warm things up a bit. Jim sent a tweet asking about leopards. Are female leopards smaller than males, and by how much? Are we talking about leopards or the tracks? I didn't quite get it. Did you get it? Just the leopard. No? Oh, just the leopards as an animal. Jim, up to half the weight, perhaps. So Jim, let me try and think of a comparison. Female leopard versus a male leopard, size-wise. Well, males can be up to about 80 kilograms. I mean, very, very big males, maybe 90 kilograms. Female leopards are maybe 35, 40 kilograms, so up to half the weight of a male leopard. Male leopards, bigger boned. They'll probably stand a good few inches taller and obviously a lot more robust than the females. What have we got here? Some tracks apart from buffalo. There are mostly just buffalo. Tracks is not always a guarantee we're going to find the animal. Even if it is here on Djuma, I mean, it was impossible to follow the lion tracks because they moved off the property. But when you have lion or leopard tracks on the property, as much as it sounds fairly straightforward, it can get a bit difficult sometimes when they do leave the road. And much like Karula right now, is not really walking in a straight line. She's wandering around. And short of having to leave the vehicle and go walkabout. Let's see, hyena tracks. Well, this is the road down to the hyena den, so naturally there are hyena tracks there. But if that cat's general direction was north, even though he was sort of zigzagging down to Treehouse Dam, it would more or less bring him out here near the hyena den. We'll have to go and check on Rebecca's road after we've been down here. Sun, I'm hoping that maybe they might be lying out in the sun warming up a bit, even though it is getting late in the morning for hyenas to be out. Yesterday I don't think they were here because it was cold and windy, so they were probably, it doesn't look like there's any activity. Lots of hyena tracks. But nobody else.
Are you boys on the drive? Just come back in. We were out with Big Gala this morning, and now we're going to be heading out again soon.
Active this morning. There are a lot of fresh tracks around, but quite clearly they've all gone back to bed right now. Back into the den. Let's get up towards Rebecca's road and see if we can find some sign of this cat. Otherwise we're going to have to go all the way back to the old hyena den. asking if it's possible that since the lion have been quite present of late, could it be that that's why the leopard have been quite scarce? It's possible, Gail, especially since the lion have been quite vocal. Quite often you'll find that if the lion haven't been calling, much like now, I mean right now, the lion and the leopard were found in exactly the same place this morning. So it's not a scenario that you will always find. It might just be for now. I would expect that since these lions have been moving, in fact there's a lot to be drawn from what we found this morning. The Kahuma pride headed on to Gari Main and they started going east generally, right up to sort of the northeastern part of their territory. At the same time, during the evening, there was a big male lion, and I'm guessing it's one of the Matimbas that must have come from the east down Leadwood Road and onto Gari Main heading west, where he eventually went south. Now, Liam and I were talking about this and we were thinking, well, maybe he was calling and the Kahumas were actually trying to avoid him, maybe because of the young male with the Kahumas, who knows. It might just be that none of them were calling and they actually managed to miss each other. And the fact that a leopard has come back now might also be because maybe they were calling and the leopard could hear that they were leaving, and so he's decided to come back where the lion aren't, and that maybe because they've been calling here on Juma, maybe that's why none of the boys quarantine or Kanuma, why neither of them have been around. So while it might be the scenario now, it's not always the case. In fact, we've on occasion been with leopard when lions have been nearby, or we've had situations where we've had leopard in a tree and lions underneath. So it doesn't always work that way, but I would imagine that occasionally, and perhaps like now, this last few days, since the lion have been quite vocal here at Juma, it's quite possible that the leopard stayed away because of it. But then I want to bring back another incident that we had not so long ago, a couple of months ago. We had the two Matimbas kill a buffalo just off of Philemon's cut line, Philemon's dip in the drainage line. And we had, I think it was Kanuma, if I'm not mistaken, or was it Quarantine, hanging around the lion kill. In fact, while they were eating, he was sitting and watching them above the drainage line, above the riverbed. Well, that in itself was unusual. He even managed to steal a little bit of the meat eventually. Got a little nibble out of that buffalo kill. We've also seen way in the past when these, I think it was the Kahumas, I think it was them, when they killed a buffalo and a calf just in front of Bateleur Lodge. Induna was seen shortly afterwards coming to feed on that kill. Well, here are his tracks. And I'm guessing they're his tracks because it coincides with coming up from Treehouse Dam, and he's turned. I have to turn around because we're going to have to go back up Zoe's Road. He wasn't on the junction of Zoe's Road and Rebecca's Road, but here his tracks are coming up Rebecca's Road, and I'm pretty sure it's the same leopard. I don't know, you can't quite see, but maybe you can. There you go. Perfect. Male leopard tracks. So he would have actually walked right past where those lions were sleeping yesterday. In fact, his tracks probably walk over where those lions were sleeping in the road. And somehow they must have avoided each other. Perhaps a time thing. The cats went that way around down to Gari Main. He came up a little bit west of them, and the timing must have been that when the cats were leaving, he was coming in. Whether they were vocal or not, I don't know. I certainly wouldn't have heard anything since I was staying up in Manuleti. Oh, wait, just on the chassis. Just looking now quickly before I turn around. I can actually see where he's come onto the road. Just in front of us here. He came out of the bush right here onto the road right here. So he would have come from almost due north from Treehouse Dam where he came out on Spum Road, and his tracks come onto Rebecca's Road right here. And we're going to turn around and we're going to go back and see if he went up towards Impala Plains, or I think he might have crossed through because there was nothing on the junction up there. I think he would have made a shortcut through here onto Zoe's Road, which means that he would have headed up Zoe's Road and then eventually got to Impala Sandy Patch maybe, or Aubrey's Road. Exciting that we've still got his tracks to follow. And I just need to chat to Scott quickly. Scott, come in. You wanted me?
Yeah, I was just wondering updates on those tracks, Mark, so I can come give you a hand. Gorilla turned around at the last moment. So I'm looking promising. I'm thinking we can come and try and help you.
Okay, sounds great. I've just picked up his tracks again on Rebecca's Road. He must have crossed through from Spum Road, past the hyena, then coming out onto Rebecca's, heading northwest on Rebecca's. I'm going to go and see if he comes out onto Zoe's. Where are you now?
Well, you take that Gary, mate, but I'll still follow the boundaries that we got in mind.
Okay, copy, thanks. I'll keep you posted.
Good luck.
So given that he's come from the south, he's come up from the south and heading more or less northwest. My guess is that he would have crossed through onto Zoe's. So we're going to have a look. There were no tracks here other than hyena tracks. And we'll have a look. There's a big junction up ahead. Oh, wait, here are his tracks now. He must have left the road. He's back on the road here. Hyena tracks too. Main junction will also give us an idea, because now that he's heading towards Impala Plains, I want to see if he's turning off. But it's time-wise, it's difficult. Elephant tracks, true. There's a steenbok. Oh, there he goes. Thanks, VM. Off to Impala Plains it is. Oh, there's nothing here now. There we go. Well, now we've got two sets because there are also elephant tracks heading this way. So we've got leopard and elephant to look for up towards Impala Plains. Fresh elephant been feeding here. Fresh feeding from elephant. Morning, Alan. Have I ever been on a drive on the tracker seat with my bare feet dangling? Many times, Alan. So, still got elephant and still got leopard tracks. So I know I'm quite engrossed with tracking at the moment, but I think Scott's got something to show you. I'm going to cross over to Scott. I'm going to keep at it, and I'm sure you'll know soon enough if I find anything.
Welcome back. And Brian and myself were racing over towards Marc and the leopard tracks in order to try and give him a hand. But we stumbled upon this little family of dwarf mongoose. And they're such cool little animals, especially when they are so close to us. We've got a great view of them, and they're just starting their day off slowly, warming up in the sun, and they would have spent their night sleeping in this old termite mound. We've seen about 4 or 5 so far, but they're scurrying about and hard to keep track of, and also going back in and out of the burrows. But it appears like the main chamber where they're all coming out of is in the center of the shot now. And 3 have just popped out of there in the last few minutes, and I wonder if many more will. Well, I've got some good news. There were 3 correct answers for the bird that was calling earlier, and it was a black-headed oriole that we could hear calling while we were waiting for the leopard that didn't ever arrive, sadly. So a very well done to Joanne, Georgianne, and Diane. You are the 3 winners of this morning's bird call quiz, and it really is impressive that some of our viewers may never have been to Africa yet have got such a great knowledge of what goes on here, and it certainly does keep us on our toes. Well, as wonderful as this sighting is, folks, it sounds like Marc has found something equally interesting over where he is, and we're going to cut over to him, and then Brian and I will be able to make our way into that area to help him also follow up on the leopard tracks. I'm, as sure a lot of us are, also desperate to see a leopard. It's been too long, and we need to head over there. So over to Marc, and we will catch up with you a little bit later.
just suddenly decided to run off. There was a whole family of warthog, and the mama and piglets are fine next to us, but he's taken off. Now, I have to tell you that our young male leopard has come all the way here to Impala Plains, and as he got to the open area, he left the road, and I was watching these warthogs. I wasn't sure if he left to the left or if he left to the right. Impala are having a good sparring session, so they're a little bit engrossed. The warthog are safe. They're out here in the open, and there's no way that a leopard is going to be able to get to one of these warthog. But I'm wondering if he isn't somewhere around the edge of this open area watching these impala. There's quite intense sparring going on. There was also a harrier hawk, African harrier hawk in the background. So a little bit of a dilemma. Do we go and look for the tracks leading away from the open area, or do we just sit and watch what's going on here for the time being? If he carried on going west, he would have crossed over into, near that piglet now, big male warthog's running back the other way. But that's because there was a car on Triple M. He's obviously a very shy big bull. Just hiding away. Bateleur group of impala are all engaging, and that's possibly a target for a leopard because they get so busy with each other they don't see what's going on around them so much. What's interesting is you can see the two grooming each other in the foreground. They were sparring just a few seconds ago, and they've stopped sparring, and now they're doing a little bit of elo grooming. Very important, the sparring at this time of the year, because they've got to challenge dominant males for access to females, and fortunately for them they can practice their sparring and spend time feeding and build up their muscles and build up strength, whereas the ram that's in charge of the females will be losing a lot of muscle, losing strength, because he spends all his day chasing males away and mating with females and doesn't get time to look after himself. Okay, so I'm going to roll a little forward, have a look at this. No, we've got no gravity drive today. We've used it all up. Recharged it. I'm not getting anything. Now the composition that we have here are the two small piglets, which would have been born around December, so they're only about 6 months old. And their mom, who's this very big female, she's got a magnificent set of tusks, and you can also see as she's eating, she looks like she's maybe broken the lower left tusk, but her lower right tusk is quite solid. And then the other piglet off to the side, that's a daughter, probably going on 2 years old now, or maybe 18 months, maybe even 2.5 years old, but a daughter from a previous litter that sticks around to help out with the new litter. The big bull running again. He's just nervous, I think. The impala have left Impala Plains. They moved off, probably because it's starting to get warm. It's time for them to head into the bush for feeding. Something's not right here. Just managed to get final control on the radio there. Just got a tweet in from Diane. Thank you, Diane. Very interesting news saying that Kumail quarantine killed a warthog on Simbambili and that it was stolen by lion. Now, I've just seen a vehicle going by on Triple M. The Simbambili is directly, straight ahead of us across Triple M, and this is where his tracks have been heading. So I'm pretty sure that is where our leopard is. And maybe one of the reasons why that big male warthog is so nervous like that, because maybe he heard the squealing. And evidently, Kumail was just walking straight into Simbambili where there was a pride lion, and I wonder who. Maybe one of the Talala breakaways even. Maybe Birmingham. Don't know. I'm going to have to see if I can find out some other way. But that would be somewhere up ahead of us. And that's just in line with the direction that his tracks have been walking in northwest, in a northwesterly direction straight from Treehouse Dam. So I'm still going to see where his tracks crossed, and I'll probably be able to go and find them crossing Triple M as well, which is our western boundary. Interesting. Thanks for that news. Warthog squeal when they're getting caught. It's very difficult to keep them quiet because they squeal almost before they even get caught. They squeal in anticipation. If it was a male warthog, it was probably a pretty heavy fight for quarantine male to have caught a male warthog. This is what I'm led to believe. And that squealing probably is what attracted lions' attention. Now, this just sort of reflects on what we were saying earlier, question whether the leopards had not been in the area because the lion were here. Now, lion have very large territories, and within the lion's territory you're going to find several leopards' territories. And leopard know that they live within the lion's territory, and obviously there are times when they can hear lion and they can avoid them, but there are also times when nature just puts them in the same place. It's unavoidable, maybe because they didn't know the lion were there. And this seems to be the case now with quarantine male. Found himself, after walking all the way from Little Gowrie, crossing Gowrie, Western Gowrie, or crossing Djuma the way he did, and finding himself on the sort of northwestern sector of his territory, the range that he covers, only to have his kill stolen by a pride lion there, even if he was trying to avoid the lion here. Bye-bye, Mrs. Pig and piglets. We'll see you later. We're going to just head up towards Sandy Patch. Copy that.
The message happened yesterday when the incident of quarantine and the water being stolen by the Styx miners happened yesterday.
Happened yesterday? Well, then this is not quarantine's tracks here, because that wasn't yesterday. This was today's tracks.
Getting mobile after coffee.
Porcupine tracks, yeah. So that message about the quarantine male and the lions, evidently that happened yesterday, not today. But then it can't be the same leopard. It must be Kanuma then. Well, let's see. We're going to find out shortly if his track...
First updates, I moved out of the area where I was standing by. But there's tracks of my daughter Ingrid somewhere around Rebecca's, Balanachis, Mark's following up on that.
So we got to see if his tracks come out here somewhere. Go ahead, Scott.
Did you have the last tracks?
Last track's just on the eastern side of Impala Plains. I'm checking Sandy Patch south now, heading up to Sandy Patch to see if he comes out here. Otherwise, I'm going to have to check on Triple M.
Okay, copy. Come back to the side.
Okay, copied. I just heard copy me. Didn't hear the beginning of that message. Georgie in Australia. I think I've got it. Unfortunately, it's breaking up a lot. I think Georgie was asking if the younger warthog that was with the mom, if she had her own babies, would she stay with her mother? Sometimes yes and sometimes no. We have seen warthog where the adult female has a litter and her daughter has a litter and they're all together. But generally not. I would say generally the young female, when she has her own litter, then becomes her own little matriarch, and she then looks after her own family. Sometimes not, though. We know that there's that family of warthog on Arathusa, on the airstrip at Arathusa, where there's 7 piglets. That piglets from the daughter and from the mom, they're almost the same age, and there are no leopard tracks here. In Wisconsin, Milwaukee. Wanting to know the purpose of warthogs holding their tail up in flight. Yes, now, Jilly's saying, is it similar to leopard and other animals for the young to follow? Yes, it is. Even though, Jilly, it is a very slim tail and it's got a very small tuft of hair, it is to some degree a signal for the young to follow, as well as a moving target for them to follow. Even though it is quite thin, I suppose running through the grasses, it's still thicker than the grasses. And I suppose the youngsters learn to single out that mom's tail. Elephant. Elephant all moving south. So go down. I'm going to follow the power line down to Triple M and we'll see what's come out on the main road. Unfortunately, there has been traffic there that might obliterate some of the tracks, but there might be tracks along the edges of the road. There doesn't seem to be any tracks here. So let's head over to Scott and see what Scott's got. I'll see you again.
Welcome back, everyone. And despite the leopards taking us on a run around this morning, that run around has brought us into an area which helped us find these elephants. And this is a small herd that we are getting to know. We saw them yesterday morning, and it's very distinctive because the trunk that you're looking at is distinctively shorter than it should be. It lacks the prehensile fingertip. She's lost the end of her trunk, this cow. And it's interesting, it's just a herd of 3 of them. It's probably 2 of her previous offspring. And although the young bull, the smallest of her calves, is nursing and trying to nurse, I think it might actually be nursing right now. It's quite old, and I'm surprised that she's allowing it to nurse. We also saw them yesterday afternoon, but there were no vehicles there. It was just the Djuma waterhole cam that alerted us to their presence. As I was saying, though, the youngster that is nursing is quite old. It looks to be about 2 years old, possibly a bit more than that. And he's been having some temper tantrums when his mother doesn't allow him to nurse. But she's given in this morning. Yesterday morning was quite different, and he was letting off the odd shriek. Expressing his frustration as to not being allowed to drink milk. And here he's trying again. Let's see what happens. You're too old now, buddy. And even though the trunk is missing ever so slightly, a little piece off the end, which is a very useful part of their trunk, it allows them to pick up the smallest of things. They could even pick up a peanut with their prehensile fingertips. She lacks these. Morning. Hello. She is very close to us. We're just hoping to find some food nearby. This is an incredibly hard piece of wood that she's just broken off, but look at the texture of that skin. It's really beautiful in the morning sunlight. Marianne in Arkansas, good morning. Marianne's interested to know some behavior that she witnessed on a previous drive with the young elephant that lifted its trunk up towards the vehicle and smelt us, and then continued to put the trunk into its mouth. And she's wondering if by putting the trunk into its mouth it would be helping to taste or sample the smell that it picked up from us. And I think it was more of just a funny maneuver rather than helping to better process our smell. Their trunk is essentially just an extension of their nose. It's just a very long column of nostrils, really, and by just smelling the air, that would have picked up enough information for it to work out what it wanted to. And I think by putting its trunk in its mouth, it was just a display of sorts, and young elephants will sometimes put their trunk in their mouth for a lack of a better place to put it. I wonder why these three are separated from what they would normally be in a larger herd than this. Who knows what it could be? It isn't hugely uncommon, though, for animals that do live communally to occasionally break off and do their own thing. But it is interesting that it appears for almost the last 48 hours these three have been alone. I'm going to try and reposition the vehicle. It's quite thick vegetation in here, and I'm not sure how lucky we're going to be, but it's definitely worth a try. So hold on, and let's see if we can get you some better views. We may have one last moment with them before the vegetation gets a bit too thick. Not ideal, but we will get a visual of the youngest elephant, probably in a few moments, passing through a little open clearing as he follows the rest of the herd. There we go, there he's putting his trunk into his mouth again, and it could just be a habit, I guess.
Perhaps a comfort thing.
Exactly, perhaps a pacifying effect, as Brian's just suggested. Just like humans sucking their thumb, a go-to maneuver when you're not sure what else to do. I always find it interesting how silently they can move through the vegetation, and also how they can disappear. They are huge animals, but can so quickly dissolve and blend into the environment that they live in, which certainly makes things interesting when you are on foot and next thing you know there's a wall of elephants in front of you. And that's their cooling system. Those massive ears are not for hearing purposes, it's for cooling purposes. So it's an animal that's adapted with some really strange improvements. Its extended nose that it can use as an extra limb to help feed, and those gigantic ears that actually don't help hearing, but they in fact are the cooling system. Chris in Washington, good morning. Chris would like to know, what does elephant skin feel like? And as you can tell just by the way it looks, it's quite rough in some sections, and very deeply textured. But in certain parts of the body, I guess, in the armpits where there's a lot of friction and rubbing, it can be exceptionally smooth. So depending on where exactly you are feeling on an elephant, it will impact on the smoothness and the texture of the skin. I've only felt an elephant once, and that was at a rehabilitation center which rescued elephants from disturbed areas. And it was a beautiful young bull. He was about 25 years old. And it was really incredible to be able to touch and feel inside the mouth, feel the trunk, and get an understanding of how they feel. But that was only once off. And as you can see, the elephants have disappeared into some thick vegetation. We'll leave them to carry on searching for food. It's a never-ending quest for elephants, really. And we will continue and see what else we can find. Even though the leopards have taken us on a bit of a runaround this morning, it's not the end of the world, and at least there are some leopard tracks on our property. We've really been battling the last few days with very, very few signs of leopards. Oh, didn't feel too good. It's over a little stump there, but it should be fine. Jojo in Brooklyn, good morning, and thanks for sending your question through. Jojo would like to know, do mother elephants take good care of their young, and would they ever lose them potentially in a herd? I find it highly, highly unlikely that an elephant would ever lose its calf. They take immense, immense care and affection towards their youngsters, and that's actually what makes elephant cows one of the more dangerous animals to encounter out here. They are so protective over their young that they will attack anything that gets in the way of them. And very often young elephant calves will seldom leave their mother's side. They will always be at her feet. They don't tend to drift too far away until they get a little bit older, like this young bull that we've just seen, who's about, I'm guessing, around 2 years old, 2.5 years old. At that stage they'll start to spend more time away from their mother, but still stay relatively nearby. But when they're small, they literally do not leave their mother's side, and it's really beautiful to see elephant cows and the affection they have, especially for newborn calves. I've only seen it once when we arrived probably a few minutes or potentially within an hour of a young elephant being born, and there were 6 or 7 cows all encompassing head to head this tiny little calf, and they all had their trunks holding the calf up, helping it take its first steps. It was incredible to witness, but I've only seen that once. The road I'm driving down is a road quite close to where Mark's been searching for this leopard. I was hoping that the leopard may have changed track and veered towards this road. Its general direction of movement was not, in fact, in this direction, but it's the closest place that we can possibly search. A lot of hyena tracks moving in this general direction. Maybe they know something that we don't. I'm just going to stop here and check this road junction very carefully. I'll just be a minute or two. make sure there's nothing that we've missed over here. Well, no luck. But tracking is kind of a process of elimination a lot of the time, so by establishing that an animal did not move in one area, it kind of helps you close off that specific part of the reserve, and it allows us to head off and search a new area. I'm going to continue though, trying to help Marc decipher what this leopard has done, and even by just concentrating our efforts this morning in trying to find out where it's gone, will help in this afternoon's drive. If we were to just give up on the tracks, then we'd be starting off this afternoon on the back foot, essentially. Really interesting stuff to hear about quarantine and what he's been up to in the last 24 hours. That, as far as I'm aware, it's, as Marc would have discussed with you, it sounds like he managed to catch a warthog, but that was stolen from him by lions. Wouldn't that be incredible to see? And it really is interesting, would be very interesting to know how often leopard come across lion and how often it's just a matter of seconds that separates them from living and dying, because if lion get a hold of a leopard, the leopard doesn't stand much of a chance. Thankfully though, leopard are masters of disappearing and also great climbers, so they have the refuge of the trees. Just got a question through from Susan. Morning, Susan. And Susan would like to know any updates we have on Karula and the potential of her having cubs. Not sure what noises I heard there, but we can just stop and listen for a while. Susan, there's been some very interesting information on Karula in the last week or so. Basically, we got a report, and I think Monday or Tuesday, from one of the guides that he had seen her with suckle rings, nursing rings around her nipples, indicating that she would have had cubs. Now, nobody saw the cubs, and the only report that I got was that she was seen with suckling rings. The very next day, we got a report that she was mating with Tingana, a male leopard. Now, interestingly enough, we did get some feedback from one of our long-term viewers who remembered that on Karula's third litter, she did a very similar thing. She had given birth, but she was seen mating with a male leopard shortly afterwards. It was for a short period of time, then. Leopardess will sometimes do this to give men the false impression that they are actually the father of those cubs. Now, the reason why she'd want to do that is that would prevent that leopard from killing cubs that are not his own, which is what male leopards will do so that they can get their genes into the system. So it's one of actually the biggest killers of leopard cubs. It's other male leopard that did not father them. Now, what is different about her mating with Tingana this time, as opposed to the last time she was seen mating when she did actually have cubs, was that she continued to mate with Tingana for about 2 or 3 days, which means that she either didn't have cubs in the first place or possibly lost the cubs very shortly after she gave birth to them. And leopard can almost immediately mate with males once they have lost their cubs, because their next step will be trying to raise the next litter, and they won't waste any time about that. So who knows, possibly it means that she's lost her last 2 litters that she's given birth to, and that's after having, I think, raised 5 or 6 litters successfully. So it looks like her luck may have turned. Anyway, time will tell. We nearly got to see her this morning, and that would have been great. We could have made some assumptions of our own, and even though we didn't, there's still a chance we could find her around Buffelshoek Dam this afternoon. So that's good prospects for this afternoon, and about as in-depth of an update as I can give you, Susan. But again, this is all going on what we've heard, not what we've actually seen. George in Florida, good morning. George would like to know if the big cats use their vision and sense of smell to predominantly find prey, or will they also follow tracks? I think it's only their hearing, their vision and their sense of smell that they use in order to find prey. And I've never actually noticed any of the predators looking down at tracks. Their other senses are far greater, and they can probably smell an animal that's walked down a road more easily than actually following its tracks visually. So they either see their prey, hear their prey, or smell their prey, or in actual fact, see, hear, or smell any other potential threats to them, not only their prey. Where is the bird that's making this noise? Brian and I are both scanning, but I can't see it. Can you see it, Brian? Wow. It appears that we have a little work on our hands here. It's so close. But where is it hiding? Let's see if we can find it. There it is. It was a little Coqui Franklin, and it's quite a rare bird to see here. Well done, Brian. And I believe you've already seen one with Mark this morning. So 2 Coqui Franklin in 1 drive. I guess they filled up the slots of the 2 leopards that we were hoping at seeing at one stage. Karula was so close to us. I mean, we could see the vehicle there, and Mark was on steaming hot leopard tracks. So Brian and I thought, well, this is going to be a jackpot second half to the drive. We're going to be switching between 2 leopards, depending on which is performing the best. But in fact, it turns out they've evaded us.
2 Coqui Franklins, though.
2 Coqui Franklins, though, exactly. We probably see more leopard than Coqui Franklins, to be honest. So we're trying to get some equilibrium out here. Brenda from Virginia, great question. Brenda has just asked, if Tingana were to kill Karula's cubs, for example, that were not fathered by him, would she in fact mate with them? And yes, there's a strong chance that she would. We're very, very close to this hornbill, so I am going to whisper because I don't want it to fly away. They are such pretty birds, the hornbills. This is a red-billed hornbill. It's the smallest hornbill we get out here. And like a lot of other animals this morning, it's enjoying basking in the morning sun. The evenings are quite chilly, but the days and winter are almost always sunny with blue skies. Just been taking the last few seconds to try and listen as intently as I can to the bush around us. There's a lot of different birds calling. Oh, and there goes the red-billed hornbill. And we are still in an area where this leopard that Mark has been tracking could pop out at any given stage. And listening can often be one of the greatest tools in finding leopard because we rely on different animals to alarm call and lead us into where they could be moving. Didn't hear anything there though. Just got a question through from Gig, and Gig's wondering if Karula has in fact lost her 2 litters, previous litters. Is she getting a bit too old for the job now? And no, I don't think she is. Leopard can be very unlucky when it comes to raising cubs. I know of a leopard that lived to about 8 years of old, so she died very young. The female can live up to 20 years of age. Anyway, this specific female attempted to raise 6 or 7 litters and did not manage to successfully raise 1 cub. She was eventually injured when she made a warthog kill and it sliced one of her front paws basically in half. And that injury she couldn't recover from, and she slowly withered away after having not raised 1 cub to adulthood. And interestingly enough, the main animal killing her cubs was male leopards, and at that stage there was a lot of disruption amongst the male leopards, and there was new males coming coming and going through her territory, which made life difficult for her because there was always different males that wanted to sire her cubs. And again, I just think it's been bad luck more than anything that Karula's lost, definitely her last litter in December. What's happened now more recently, we're not too sure of exactly yet. But she's certainly got a few more years in her before she starts getting too old to be a good mother, I think. Okay, well, while Brian and myself continue searching for anything interesting for you guys, let's catch up with Marc and see how he's coming along. We'll see you later.
Well, welcome back. We're on Sandy Patch, heading up towards Sandy Patch. We just left Impala Plains. Reluctantly have had to give up on that leopard. I went back to where I last saw his tracks, and I was walking around trying to ascertain where he had gone from there. It's almost as though he walked down the middle of the road, and it's a nice sandy road. There's no grassy patch in the middle as there is here. And well, I know that I must have driven over one or two of his tracks, but there's a point where I just cannot find where he left the road, whether it was to the left or the right. Quite clearly, it's at some point around the edge of Impala Plains. He must have come out onto Impala Plains and actually stopped looking out onto the open area. There were impala there. Here comes Scott. There were impala there. And the warthog are grazing. The warthog are still quite busy. Looking now, there was some impala further back that I saw a minute ago, a second ago. And I just wanted to see if they weren't maybe they're feeding. They're doing fine. Gonna play chicken.
Hello, Marcus.
Morning, Scott. Hello, Brian. So his tracks, just telling everybody, his tracks came Spam Road down to the dam, back up to Philemon's cut line, cut through. We could see where he came out onto Rebecca's Road. Okay. Just above where the lion were, actually. Yeah. So it must have been after they left anyway. And then all the way up Rebecca's Road to the edge of Impala Plains. And if you go up from Impala Plains, you'll actually see where I drew my foot. That's the last track that I got of him. Couldn't find anything on Triple M except the leopard tracks that we saw yesterday when we turned in to go look for the ellies on Arathusa.
Just as well you knew about those ones from yesterday.
Yeah, because they do look quite fresh on the edge, especially being Triple M, and you know how the cars drive up and down the edge of track differently. I haven't seen anything here. I did come up and down here a little bit. So he didn't come out onto this road. He didn't go out onto Triple M. There is a bachelor herd of impala just here on the northern edge of the open area. And then there's a warthog family on the southern end. So I don't know whether he's hiding out somewhere. Okay. And he's watching impala. There's also
some leopard tracks on the property.
Yes.
So good prospects for some time.
I don't know if you heard that, but evidently Diane said that Quarantine had been on some Bambili. Yeah. Killed a warthog there yesterday. Which was stolen by lion. Yeah. Because when I heard that, I thought, oh, well, maybe that's him, because he was coming up from Treehouse, and that's a straight line to some Bambili. But it's obviously, this must be Kanyuma then, if Quarantine was already on some Bambili.
That sounds like it could be the case. But we're going to have to find it to make sure.
We are.
So good luck. We've only got a few more minutes.
See you later.
Cool, Mark.
See you for breakfast.
Yes. Later.
So there you have it. And after driving around for 3 hours, it's strange that we've met up again. But Scott was going to be coming to help with these tracks, and unfortunately, well, there just doesn't seem to be any sign of him coming out onto this road. We'll see whether Scott came from Sandy Patch or whether he came down the power line. If he came from Sandy Patch, I'll head down the power line and get back towards Juma Access, Weirtele Access Road.
believe you were lucky to get an elephant with Scott earlier. Oh, it's silly. Okay, it's 3 ellies. Sounds like a cow and the 2 calves. I saw their tracks yesterday. Found all the places where their tracks weren't. And then I think Scott found them yesterday afternoon. Now I found them again this morning. Porcupine was here last night. Been away for a couple of weeks. It's interesting coming back here to this Harvey Sand and seeing how much leaf litter there is, despite the fact that there has been rain and there's a little bit of a flush of green in the grasses and the trees compared to when I left. It was looking rather dry, but there are still signs of winter, the leaves falling and the leaves on the ground. But great to be back this morning. A lot of tracking this morning and not too many results, or am I being modest? No results from any of the tracking, to be honest. Or at least we got to see where the tracks left the property, and it was good to hear that the cats had been found further east, and pity that we didn't find them. But thanks also for all your patience with all the tracking that I was doing this morning. I was starting to get a bit excited with the leopard track, thinking that maybe we were going to catch up with him. And well, our sunset safari this afternoon, starting at 3 o'clock Central African time, gives us another chance to follow up on things, and I hope you're going to join us for that. So from Liam and I, well, from myself, Mark, and well, Liam in the back on camera, we'll say goodbye to you for now, and I'll be seeing you this afternoon. I'll be seeing you for your morning, our evening, if you're in the northern hemisphere, the western side of the world. What do you see there? Digging. Warthog diggings. Bye everyone, see you later. Love you lots.
Welcome back, and what a beautiful way to close out this morning's drive, watching this African Harrier hawk fluttering about, trying to catch and ride a hot thermal of air spiraling up off the earth as it does warm up today. As you can see, it's still flapping quite a lot, so not the most efficient flight. But that's because it is still cool, and you'll find a lot of the birds of prey will only start thinking about flying now that it is becoming warmer. They rely on the hot air thermals to float effortlessly and efficiently. We've seen the same type of bird digging into cavities of trees trying to pluck out potential prey, and that's how they hunt. So maybe it's looking for a tree with some potential cavities in which to search for some food. They'll pluck small chicks out of nests and reptiles taking refuge in logs. Well, it's been an exciting morning, but sadly a lot of the excitement has finished in disappointment because the leopards that we were hoping to see didn't pop up. But that's all part of the adventure, and we still did get to see some great other animals along the way, and it's always fun coming out and sharing whatever happens out here with you, the viewers. So thanks for signing in. Thanks to Brian on camera, good to be teamed up with you again, and to Nikki and Tara in Final Control, thanks very much. We'll leave you with a few last shots of the warthog as we say goodbye. And don't forget to tune in for the PM Safari. I'm feeling lucky we're going to find some leopard for you.